Hey guys, Darcy here with another video about music production. Today's video is gonna be about two topics. The first, take stuff out of your beat to make it more exciting. And the second, knowing when you should be adding more stuff. Now I'm gonna demonstrate a lot about a beat that I made the other day. I don't want this to emphasize, hey, look how dope this beat was and how simple it was for me to make. It's really how I went about approaching it, the process, that really ended up making it a lot more exciting than it could have been. When you start to look at how to approach things, you usually are going to end up with better, more consistent results. Here's a 4-bar loop that I started with. So after I had this loop, I realized, okay, now it's time to lay this thing out. Then I laid out the hook with the 4-bar loop that I had, and I took out the lead instrument and laid out the 16 bars for the verse. Then I decided, what do I want to have in the intro? And I went with piano. So now I have my hook, my verse, and I specifically went in that order because you always want to know what you're working towards. It's like a story. It's better if you know how you're going to end your story before you start your story. The problem with this, as it is, it was going to get repetitive. Those 16 bars were the same thing over and over again. This is a mistake I made a lot when I was first making beats. You get a nice loop and you'd play it out and be like, this is hot, and just leave it as is. If you think about it, you have this 4-bar loop that is like one stanza, and you're looping it 4 times, and you haven't made any change. Can you imagine if a rapper comes out and raps the same 4 lines 4 times? You're gonna get bored by the 4th time, so you gotta make it more interesting. The first place I'm always going to subtract from, and this is just my process, is the last 4 bars before the hook. Because the hook is what I'm building towards. I want to make sure that there's a pretty dramatic drop before we go into that hook. So let me show you what I did. After I got that established, the next place I go is to the 3rd stanza, the stanza just before the 4th one. And the reason being is because now I know what the biggest change, the biggest subtraction, I'm going to then make some subtractions in the 3rd one that usually in some way are similar but are less dramatic. Then I go to the 1st stanza and I take a little bit of something out in this case. Sometimes I do that in the 2nd, or sometimes I do that in the 1st, but in this case I kind of wanted to feel like in the 1st one, it feels like that's what the established 4-bar loop is, and I just took out like a simple hi-hat in this case. But in the 2nd stanza, you get the full established version of the hi-hat, but I still subtracted, I think it was a snare near the end. So now we have a well-established verse. The problem here is that I felt like it was missing something. Now, this isn't always the case. I played the piano. It wasn't like I had like 25 instruments that were in the mix of my sample. I thought about it and I was like, I feel like an organ would work here. I grabbed an organ and I actually started playing in the intro first. Basically just kind of freestyled something out that felt good to me and made that loop here in the intro. Now, I had this loop and I wanted it to be like something you heard in the intro that was letting you know what's coming. So I decided to break it up into 2 other places differently throughout the rest of the verse. So in the first 2 stanzas, I don't play the loop in its entirety. I actually take what I'm gonna call the accent part, the part near the end of the 2nd bar and the 4th bar in the loop, and I just play those to emphasize the drops in the 1st and 2nd stanza. Over the 3rd and 4th stanza, take the loop, but I actually take out that accent part at the end of the 2nd and the 4th beat in the loop. So I'm looking at the beat that I have so far. I'm looking at the drops going into the hook. And I just got this idea that's kind of popped into my head. I felt like it was missing something and I kind of wanted it to feel like it was building more. So I took the main melody, that piano that I have, and I chopped it into 2 halves and then reversed each half, because basically there's like lower harmony notes that are very big. You'll kind of feel like it's going and kind of building into it. Played them that part where it's building just over the big drops. And the one thing you'll notice is that the 2nd time that those builds happen, they're a little bit longer than the 1st time, so it just feels like it's a little bit more dramatic. And that's pretty much the beat, guys. You know, other than like a little bit of mixing and stuff that I did on it. The thing that I like to emphasize from this, the fact that 1, you should be taking stuff out. You're building up to something, but you're also you're adding more feel, because when the person is anticipating something they've heard before and it doesn't come, now they're like, where does that go? I wanna hear that again. Like, play that again. And then when you bring it back, it's more exciting. And that's really the point. And then sometimes you'll see place for new instruments in that, because now that you've taken out space, there's more room to maybe add something new and exciting. But if you just say loop, you know, your 4-bar loop 4 times over and just add a bunch, it could get too busy. You don't have enough room anymore. And it's actually a lot easier to take stuff out and to imagine new stuff to put in. Anyways, peace guys, have a good one.